This is the Frat House Sports Show. And now for this week's completely different and humorous perspective on everything sports, here's Frat House Mike and Sidekick.
Alrighty, now, well, listen, welcome back to our first show of June and our second from right here at the new Frat House 2 studio. Well, we were talking about this a little bit pre-show, but who says that June there's nothing to talk about in sports? Because we've got the entire crew here this evening, and we are ready to chat it up about a laundry list of eclectic and mixed up stories here. And we're going to touch on just about everything, including even, we're going to make a little mention of a little bit of football. Football. Yeah.
You're mocking me, aren't you?
Right, Fifi. We're going to be talking about Fifi.
I'll tell you what, let's kick it off with our top stories. Go ahead.
And since you said we've got a laundry list, we should start off with the dirty laundry first.
And this would be appropriate. Yeah, this would be appropriate. Listen, ironically, we were all sitting here last Thursday evening, and we were discussing the latest developments in the situation with the LA Clippers and the Donald Sterling scandal, and how he was going to be fighting things, and how this was going to get so protracted, and on and on and on we went, and we went around in circles, and we no sooner, I mean literally, no sooner got done taping the show when you come to me announcing...
With the USA Today on my phone, the alert that said, Steve Ballmer
has purchased
$2 billion.
Put in a successful bid to purchase the LA Clippers for $2 billion. Now, initially, yes, initially, when Sidekick brought the story to me, I got to be honest, I was a bit skeptical, even to the extent of saying, listen, let's not report that just yet, because I was recalling how the NBA board was scheduled to meet on June 3rd. The board hadn't even yet voted to ban Sterling at that point. Sterling was still technically the owner, as was his wife, Shelley.
And
Shelley
had a lawsuit?
Yes, Shelley was
suing the NBA?
Shelley was apparently out there beating the bushes trying to get an owner, but then there was talk that perhaps maybe Sterling wouldn't go along with that. So the whole thing, I was very, very skeptical on the whole thing. But apparently, in fact, it has gone through. The sale was negotiated, apparently, by Shelley Sterling with Steve Ballmer. And the price tag, apparently, is $2 billion.
I need dough and plenty of it.
Nonetheless, even after that announcement, though, early into this week, Donald Sterling continued to make some static and some noise about some things, claiming he was going to continue to fight the whole thing and that he wasn't going to go along with the sale. And then there was word of the $1 billion lawsuit against the NBA. All right, here it is. At this moment, it's all calmed down. It's all been settled. Sterling has acquiesced. Donald Sterling has acquiesced. He's going to sell the team to Ballmer. $2 billion is the price tag. The $1 billion lawsuit has been dropped. And all is good in the world.
Exactly. Funny how that all neatly just wrapped up.
Real quick, too. Real quick.
You know,
despite all the acrimony.
Now, the owners still need to approve
the new sale.
Yes.
Correct. But apparently whatever was on the agenda for June 3rd, that's all null and void and moot at this point. And there was even word that they were going to continue to go through with the June 3rd meeting, but apparently that never happened. But really, where I go with the whole story at this point, I guess, and where I think it's actually a little more, I think this is the little more interesting angle on the whole thing. When Ballmer came in what I refer to as the over-the-top bid of $2 billion for a Clippers team that apparently was valued at just under $600 million. The talk all across all sports at that point was what had this overinflated, what was going to be the result of this overinflated situation towards all sports franchises, not just in the NBA, but Major League Baseball, NFL, NHL, anything. What kind of an effect could this potentially have? Because essentially we're talking about Ballmer coming in and paying essentially 4 times the value of what the Clippers were actually worth.
And when you say value, you're referencing the Forbes number valuation.
Yeah, whatever, you know, I'm not 100% certain where it came from, but it's been the number that everyone has thrown around.
And I believe that is the Forbes number.
You know, which I think was about $580 million.
Right.
And I guess the question I'm going to start it off with, I'm going to throw it out there this way. I'm just going to say it this way because I've got my own personal opinion on it. Was Steve Ballmer irresponsible? Sidekick.
No, I don't think he was irresponsible, but the conspiracy theorist in me thinks that this number has been negotiated by the Sterlings, by the NBA, and by Mr. Ballmer, so that everything would neatly be taken care of. Here's your $2 billion golden parachute. You and your wife split that. You drop your lawsuit, and you go off and you enjoy your $2 billion.
Okay.
Mr. Ballmer comes in. He gets his team there in LA, and you know the NBA, the value of all NBA teams go up now because you've got a team that was valued somewhere in the 580 million, just paid $2 billion. To correlate that number, the New York Knicks are supposedly the highest valued team in the NBA at 1.4 billion. That would Ballmerize their value now to $4.87 billion.
Correct. And see, this is where I come back with the question about irresponsibility. And you're saying no, because you're saying that in essence what it came down to was this was an objective simply to remove Sterling. Sterling's happy. He goes away with the price that he had been putting out there in the media of $2 billion. The NBA's happy because they get their team out of the hands of this man, all right, who basically was damaging the entire league anyhow. And everybody gets what they want, except that, as you just point out, how can we justify a team like the Milwaukee Bucks being valued at almost $2 billion, $1.5 billion? That is just wrong. And as I pointed out pre-show, if this was going on Wall Street, there would be SEC violations. You cannot artificially inflate the value of businesses, and that's what this has done.
Right.
You
jump in anytime you want.
filthy criminals.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I think what's going to happen is Forbes is going to repudiate the number. They're going to say this was a stupid thing to do, but it was a moral victory to get a racist out of the league. And in fact, the valuations that Forbes has put forth are going to be justified. They're going to remain on the books. And this is going to be a blip and a hiccup. This guy's never going to be able to turn around and sell this franchise. I don't care what he does for $2 billion. He may have to come out when this is all said and done, and it probably will be in another 10 days or 2 weeks. And he will say, listen, why I did it was as a moral victory to the league in order to excise from the clutches of this racist a proud franchise, and eventually there will be a return of valuation. But to Ballmerize or assume that the rest of the leagues, not just the NBA, but the other leagues are going to Ballmerize and start inflating the value of their franchises, I think is madness. And if that starts to really happen, I've got to question everything I know about professional sports, period.
Well, I got to question everything I know about economics because, I think if I'm hearing you correctly, though, Uncle Mark, what you're saying is you would expect, as we have seen with Wall Street, that there would be a correction coming at some point or another.
Oh, without a doubt. Listen, the value of the franchise is, as we said pre-show, favorably $600 million. Well, okay, after the draft and at the end of the next year and whenever Forbes is going to release their next valuation, maybe that'll jump modestly. They might say, well, approximately $700 million. It will never come close to what this man paid. And my contention is the reason behind why he did this was exactly that. It was a moral victory to make the league clean and sober from, racism.
But
I think that's what it comes down to.
Isn't it like anything else? Once the benchmark has been set, in other words, Once that high-profile athlete has been paid that $100 million mark, and I'm going to use quarterbacks right now, I guess maybe as the example, Colin Kaepernick making $18 million a year as of yesterday, that suddenly, that seems to be the market value for a QB. It doesn't matter how good, bad, or indifferent you might be. There's the benchmark. Once something goes up in value, it is very, very unlikely we see things come back down in value.
Yeah, but the difference there is Kaepernick's value to his team does not dictate the value of that team as a franchise compared to other franchises. In other words, if they made a bad mistake economically to overpay this guy, then they're going to take their raps, but it doesn't necessarily badly impact or negatively impact on that franchise value. What we're seeing here is the potential, if I understand you, Frat House Mike, that by putting a $2 billion price tag on this Clippers team, it's therefore going to impact all of the others. That's ridiculous economics. I'm with you. That's impossible to believe. And again, I would question everything about the morals and ethics of pro sports if that's going to be allowed.
Well, we will get to see how this plays out here in the short term because, we have the Buffalo Bills.
Okay, good point. Thank you.
Yeah, who will be coming up for sale.
Yep.
So we'll be able to see if this translates to other leagues.
Excellent point. Because I was just going to say, when could we expect to see the correction, if there is going to be one at all? Would it be the very next time that a team gets sold? And you're bringing up a very valid point. Buffalo would be probably the first one on the list.
Yeah.
Sidekick, your Rams. Your Rams, perfect example. I mean, if $2 billion is what it's going to get you to move to L.A., I expect the St. Louis Rams to up and move tomorrow, right?
Yeah. So, while we're talking about football, if we were to Ballmerize figures, the number that was thrown out was the Dallas Cowboys. If you apply the modifier, the Cowboys are worth $8 billion.
Wow.
And if you look, you look at recent history in the NFL, you got the Browns were bought for $1.05 billion, and the Jaguars were sold for $760 million.
Right.
Recent, these are recent transactions.
The Jaguars are recent, right?
So.
Well, and see, the other thing I guess that kind of disturbs me just a tad bit about the whole thing is that this is getting priced so out of the range of any one individual that what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at corporations owning all of our major sports teams. That's what it's going to come down to. Because no one individual is going to be able to do it.
And,
exactly.
Stuff like that.
And I don't know if that's what we want.
Well, and, to go back to some other topics that we had touched on, when Ballmer last year was trying to get Sacramento to go to Seattle, they were trying to get a bond floated. There was a group of investors. They were trying to get a bond floated to have Seattle and the taxpayers pay for the new stadium. Okay? All of a sudden now he shows up in LA with $2 billion cash. Hey, I'll take the. Okay, I'm sorry. If you got $2 billion to buy a franchise, build your own damn stadium.
That's a great point.
Stop putting taxpayers on the hook for this stuff. You know what I mean? If you can spend all this money to buy these franchises, I don't want to hear, oh, well, you need, like they're mugging St. Louis now with threatening to move the Rams back to L.A. Oh, well, if your stadium isn't, in the top tier, top 8 of the league, we're off the contract and we're moving back to L.A.
Excellent point.
I'm sorry. You got $2 billion to buy a team. You build your own damn stadium. Right. Look at Jerry Jones. So, okay, my rant's over.
All right. All right. Well, there you have it.
My goodness, what a fuss you're making.
We're going to move on because I don't want to get too lengthy. We could go on with this for a long time. But we've got some other stories that we want to get to. But I have a feeling we're going to be revisiting the first time that there is a quote-unquote correction. We're going to be revisiting the valuation issue. Watch Buffalo. I think we're going to be talking about that one shortly. All right, let's get over to another situation that revolves around money. How about billions, too, as we've talked about. And we were just talking about it a little bit earlier this year, that despite the initial $1 billion settlement that the NFL had offered to settle the rash of post-concussion syndrome lawsuits. New lawsuits continue to pop up, and we've got a brand new one that is now brewing. On Monday, it was announced, excuse me, that former Miami Dolphins Hall of Fame quarterback Dan Marino was joining yet another class action lawsuit against the NFL surrounded around concussion, the whole concussion syndrome. That was Monday. On Tuesday, he came out and announced, no. I'm withdrawing my name from that legal filing. So if all of you were sitting there or are now sitting there scratching your head, welcome to the club, as was I.
You get nothing.
Marino's
you lose. Good day, sir.
And withdrawing included, quote, I authorized a claim to be filed on my behalf just in case I needed future medical coverage to protect me and my family in the event I later suffered from the effects of head trauma. In so doing, I did not realize I would be automatically listed as a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the NFL. I have made a decision it is not necessary for me to be part of any claims or this lawsuit. Well, wait a minute. I thought the whole idea here was that you were supposed to be suffering from symptoms now. This situation with Marino, and I'm coming to you, Sidekick, because, you've kind of been the clarion for the whole concussion thing. Mm-hmm. This guy, in my opinion, just did absolute damage to the whole credibility and legitimacy of the concussions issue with the NFL. Because if he's coming out and jumping in there just for the sake of jumping in there and he really doesn't have any issues at all, that leads one to sit there and question how many others have been doing it as well.
Right. Well, and now I've got an interesting take on this, of course. But I wanted to say I don't want to say, if he were to have symptoms, he will be taken care of by the previous law. Yes, that
still has yet to be settled with a number.
Right. But that has been set up so that any player in the future, any former player in the future that would have symptoms would be taken care of. Mm-hmm. So even though his name's not in that lawsuit, if he develops those symptoms later, he would be covered.
Okay.
But when I was researching this, I came across some comments by Boomer Esiason in regards to these class action lawsuits. And this is his quote that he had on his radio show. Quote, there's a cottage industry that's been developed by lawyers all across the country recognizing that, wow, if they threw out $765 million, what number would they be happy with? Lawyers get paid. And see, that's what this is about. There's lawyers that are going to all the NFL players saying, hey, you need to get in on this lawsuit so you can get paid, so your family can get taken care of. And now this may not be the case, because there's also, I heard there was some social media uproar, the fact that he entered into this lawsuit. But at the same time, I don't doubt that there were not attorneys talking to him saying...
So we got ambulance chasers, basically.
Yes. Uh-huh.
That's what this is all about.
And that stinks to me.
Destroying the credibility of the.
That's what I think. More than Dan Marino popping in and out, I think it's the lawyers that are ruining the credibility.
Right.
Because you think about this. They threw out the initial settlement was $765 million.
Correct.
The judge threw that out, saying that's not enough. The reason that's not enough, you got to think the attorneys are going to take half that money.
Well, the attorney's fees were built into that. It was $1 billion, of which almost $200,000 or $200 million was going to the attorneys.
Which I think is a great.
So it was $1 billion. The entire settlement was $1 billion, but only, as we pointed out in our one show, only like $765 million of it was actually going to go to the victims.
And that to me is disgusting. That is really
piss me off.
This whole concussion lawsuit stuff.
Well, I wanted to address it because I just felt that we've talked a lot about the whole concussion thing. We've talked about it from the standpoint of, hey, really should these guys be getting anything more anyhow? They knew what the risks were when they walked out there to begin with. And then you see something like this, which just kind of smacks of Marino taking full advantage of something that maybe he doesn't have a right to be doing. That's all. That's
and
the way
I suspect, that may be kind of why he so quickly flipped and said, whoa, hey, I don't want to be part of this.
Right.
Let's bear in mind, too, if we could, that Marino was recently fired from CBS after being an employee for a long time, for which he was covered for health care. So there was a little bit of that, along with the social media, that may have played into what it looked like and how he backed away. And I'll be honest, to tell you the truth, just from my gut, personally, I think that this man, after visiting with Jim Kelly, who is eligible for $0 from the NFL because he has a cancer which cannot fall under any NFL liability clause, Marino may have walked away having fully arrived at the awareness that he's got it better than just about every other player out there that really needs some a piece of this lawsuit right now.
Good point.
So maybe there was a little shame involved, and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Good point.
And there's always been some sort of rumors floating around of him trying to get back into the Dolphins organization.
Right, exactly.
And he doesn't want to,
disenfranchise that.
Well, that's it. The Dolphins have said, "Oh, that wouldn't happen," but we live in the real world, man.
Yeah, exactly. All right, good stuff. And we'll continue our trend here of talking about things that just fly in the face of contradiction. We're seeing it more and more and more. We're seeing it across the leagues. And I don't think there's been a sport that we've talked about at least once or twice where it hasn't happened, and that is players being penalized, fined, suspended for personal behavior in-game and off-field, only to have those fines, penalties, and suspensions reduced or sometimes completely expunged altogether.
Are you trying to give me the double talk?
Yeah, maybe they are. Uncle Mark, you've got the latest good example of this coming to us from the NHL. What are the details?
Yeah, well, listen, let's talk about this Dan Carcillo. He was suspended, for pushing off after an altercation with the linesman. Originally, it was going to be 10 games. Well, that got reduced by Bettman to 6 games. I did a little background on Carcillo. He's a minor league player for 6 years, from 2001 to 2007. And the guy played 317 games and actually did pretty well at that level. He put up 242 points in 317 games. That's actually pretty good. It's like a 1 point for every 1.3 games he played, but he collected 1,108 penalty minutes. So he's always been a grinder. Well, fast forward, the guy gets moved around to several teams. Phoenix picked him up, and they let him go. And next thing you know, he's playing for Philadelphia. And interestingly enough, in the 2010 game, he bragged to Mike Emmerich and Eddie Olczyk prior to the 2010 Winter Classic that he'd be part of the first fight of record for the outdoor series, and by golly, he then went out and made good with that prediction, fighting Boston's Sean Thornton. Now, he wound up with the Chicago Blackhawks, and believe it or not, this guy actually has won a Stanley Cup. And despite way below average numbers, because I'm going to give them to you here, he could possibly win a second cup already in 2 years. He's played 390 professional games. He has 44 goals, 48 assists for 92 points, more like 1 point for every 2.4 games.
Thank you.
But he's kept pace as the role player. Yes, having collected
I like that word.
a relatively similar 1,180 penalty minutes. So this guy is exactly what you see.
Yep. Role player. Role player. I love that. That's just a buzzword for...
Well, I had to, right? We've talked about it in past shows. He's a role player.
The thing, though, that you and I talked about a little bit the other day, Uncle Mark, and this goes to all the sports. We have sat here on this set, not this set, but multiple sets now, and have talked about NASCAR penalties being overturned and reduced. Major League Baseball fines and penalties being reduced and overturned. NFL penalties being reduced and overturned. And this has just gotten to be a real... I mean, it's ridiculous. It's a problem.
But yet, Pete Rose is still not in the hall.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
it's become a sickness. And, you're right, Mike. While we've seen, a reduction of penalties, we've seen the rollback of fines and, forgiveness, we're seeing ridiculous upward valuations of billions of dollars in franchise value. So everything's wrong.
We're bringing it all back around.
We're in the bizarro world. What the world?
I'm just so... look, set the fine, leave it alone. Every time a commissioner or a quote-unquote disciplinarian steps in and makes a change downward from what an initial ruling was, it just leaves one to sit there and say, we've got our own leaders of our leagues tampering. That's what they're doing. They're tampering with the game. They're tampering with the sport to try to get the outcome that they want. And for God's sake, as you just pointed out, Pete Rose banned from baseball for life for quote-unquote tampering, but we allow our commissioners to do exactly that.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and you know what I personally find just, I guess, morally reprehensible is that the officials are out there, they're doing their job every day on the ice, every day on the field, and you might think that being vetted by the league, that the league would back them up and not, in fact, kind of turn a blind eye or otherwise mellow to the players. I have a little problem with it. Listen, I can understand why Bettman did it. It was either minimum 10 games or minimum 3 games based on the criteria of this particular rule. So Bettman went right down the middle and said, okay, well, it's not 10, but it's more than 3. We'll make it 6. So I can kind of see where he hedged. But for the good sake of the business, I would have said, you know what? Make it stand, make it stick, pay the price. Hey, now you've set the right example.
See,
yep.
Real quick, just go back to baseball. We still have A-Rod in the damn league. We can't get this cancer out.
Yeah,
okay,
man.
But yet we can't let Pete Rose in the hall. Right. Okay, I'm done with Pete Rose now.
What do they need? A shot in the ass?
As far as refs go, as far as refs go, you shouldn't touch them.
Agreed.
I don't understand this. Oh, it was inadvertent, so it's a 6-game.
Any of this get through to you, son?
Intentional 10-game. No, you don't put your hand on the stinking ref. I don't care.
There you go.
Oh, they have a lot of F-bombs,
and it should be over the top.
Yeah, agreed.
To protect the refs of the game.
Yep. Well, and we talk about, I guess, I'm trying to park in the wrong church is what I'm trying to do here. I guess maybe that's what it is. Because I still go back to the whole concept of athletes as role models, and that's so completely untrue. I'd like to believe it, but God knows we've known for decades that's not the case. But, when you have young athletes out there that see this kind of thing and they go, I can get away with it. All I got to do is bitch and moan and cry a little bit, and they're going to reduce my sentence. Now the whole role model thing gets me a little bit.
Well, Mr. McShane, you can't spank me anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. And by the way, everybody gets a trophy.
Exactly.
You have to ask me nicely.
Oh, we're touching on it all tonight, aren't we now, Coach? All right,
let's some nerves out there, aren't they?
Let's move it on. Let's move it on because
we're in the new studio now.
Yeah. We're christening it well. We've got an event that's going to be coming up on Saturday.
Hey, how come you're so cantankerous today?
Which could have historical significance.
Clean up on aisle 3.
Here it comes.
We've got the third leg of our potential Triple Crown winner, the first possibly in 36 years when California Chrome will go for his third victory in the longest of the 3 races at the Belmont Stakes and become only the 12th horse to win all 3 races. Chrome will start out of the number 2 gate and is a heavy 3-5 favorite to win what has frequently been referred to as the most difficult of all 3 of the races. The nearest assumed challenger at this point right now is Wicked Strong, who came in 4th at the Derby at 6-1. Ride on Curlin is listed at 12-1, and General A-Rod at 20-1.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wicked Strong, though, took a race off.
Correct.
So he's had 5 weeks of rest versus 3 weeks for California Chrome.
Correct. And in fact, many of them do. California Chrome right now, obviously, is the only one in this pack right now that has been in all 3. Now, Chrome's jockey, Victor Espinoza, has been here before. In 2002, Espinoza rode a War Emblem into the Belmont for a chance at the Triple Crown then for that horse. That year, unfortunately, however, the Belmont was won by a 70-1 long shot Strava. All right, so let's
did you bet on Strava?
No, I did not. No.
I bet you bet on
Warren Limbo, of course. Yes.
That's the trouble. I can't make up my mind.
Optimistic.
But from all of us here at Frat House Sports, I'm going to tell you there is nothing that would thrill me more than to be able to come on here next week with the big story being California Chrome winning Triple Crown.
Well, I'm Sidekick, you know.
No.
All right. All right, there's our big stories for this week. And we have just a few more shows remaining for our NHL hat trick segment. As the Stanley Cup final, not finals. I don't know if anybody's ever recognized that the NHL is very firm about that. They want it being referred to as the final, not the finals. Began last evening, Game 1 from Los Angeles, and it went overtime in Game 1. And hopefully, Uncle Mark, that's a sign of a hell of a good series upcoming. Give us your thoughts on where we're going with this one.
Yeah, well, hopefully it is a good sign. Los Angeles got to open the series at home, and that's the first time in this year's playoff action. And another first for LA. They actually won the game and escaped the prospect of having to come back from 3-0 in yet another round. Now, the Rangers had a couple extra days rest compared to LA. You know, New York sent Montreal packing after Game 6 of the conference round for the East back on May 29th. That was a week ago. And LA finally dispatched Chicago Sunday night, June 1st. So it took the Rangers just 12 days to do what it took 14 for LA to do, and that was to advance to this next round. Coming into it, the consensus opinion holds that the difference maker will be goaltending,
right,
and that New York, and specifically Henrik Lundqvist, has that factor in margin of victory or margin of loss, as was the case last night with Game 1. King Henry faced 43 shots, men, and he turned away 40, okay, in that 3-2 overtime loss. You know, the first period was punctuated with energy and speed from New York. They emphasized everything Coach Vigneault has in his game plan. Win the battles, minimize the opportunities. You know, Los Angeles appeared relatively slower. They were really unable to contain the Rangers. Why, at just about the 15-minute mark, they trailed 2-0. And that was quickly followed, you know, between Carl Hagelin's shorthanded goal and Benoit Pouliot's second tally, or first tally, rather, 1 minute and 42 seconds before. The Kings have been here before. They know about trailing goals by 2, trailing games by 2 goals. This was the 4th time they've trailed during the whole postseason, and they've come back to win every time. Now, there wasn't really any scoring in the third, but it was far from dull. The Kings held the shot advantage over New York 14-0 through 11 minutes 43 seconds of the frame. They ultimately put 20 shots on Lundqvist compared to just 3 that Jonathan Quick saw from the Rangers. Best opportunity was once again that speedy Carl Hagelin, who came in determined. His result was a breakaway on Quick, and he made the aggressive save and called it himself very lucky. This is the 3rd consecutive year in Stanley Cup history that Game 1 took an overtime to finish. And when you ask any player or any coach, they'll tell you everything changes in overtime. 4 minutes, 36 seconds into it. Who gets it but former Flyer Justin Williams? He added to his 20 postseason, his career high 20 postseason points by scoring the winner from another former Flyer, Mike Richards. Yeah, it doesn't taste very good to those of us who are old Flyer guys. This is Williams' 8th goal and his second game to score in Game 7 for LA. Could be the 3rd cup if Williams wins this. It could be his 3rd cup. He won with Carolina in 2006, and of course he got his 2nd with LA back in 2012.
There's a lot of analysts out there that seem to think that the Rangers are outmatched. In seeing some of that game last night, I was working on prepping for today's show here, but in watching some of that game last night, you're right, the Rangers came out very fast in the first period. However, they seemed to slow down quite a bit from about the midpoint of the game on. And I'm wondering if that's a trend that we will see and something that maybe the Rangers are going to have to address. Not so fast, not so hard, so early. Spread it out, keep your energy throughout the entire game.
Well, yeah, quite frankly, this was New York's best chance to steal one in L.A. You know, L.A. won Game 1 in 2012 against the New Jersey Devils, and that, too, was in overtime. And they've won in 6 games. L.A. has won 6 straight series after taking a 1-0 advantage in that series. So L.A. knows how to put that stranglehold on them. That middle period, there was a lot of hits. By the end of 40 minutes, these two teams had exchanged 61 hits against one another. So you're absolutely right. L.A. is more physical. Arguably, New York might be a bit more speedy. The goaltender Lundqvist is going to have to stand on his head in Game 2 in order to win that one, in my view.
Yep. All right, well, here we go. Hard to believe next week at this time we're either going to be congratulating a new champion or we're going to be prepping for Game 5. That's where we'll be next Thursday at this point. Okay, there we go. There's our hockey report. On deck right now, let's get to our baseball segment. And as always, this is brought to you by our friends Carl and Jim, excuse me, over at CLW 83. And many thanks again to Jim for having me on as a guest panelist the other day on his Touch 'em All program. And you can find that very broadcast either at their website, clw83.com, or you can find the links for it by getting over to our Frat House Sports Facebook page. All right, if you haven't liked it, give it a like, and then you'll find where I've posted it up. And you can give a listen to that production. Before we get to our screwy stories for the week, though, we want to take a moment here to remember an icon of baseball, Don Zimmer, who passed away yesterday at the age of 83. Over 65 years this guy was in baseball, and I posted up on our Facebook page last evening when I first learned of his passing that I don't care who your favorite team was or whether Don Zimmer might have been on the opposite side of it as a coach or maybe even as a player, if you go back that far. The fact of the matter is you had to like Zimmer. Zimmer was married on a baseball field in 1951. In 1956, however, he was severely hit by a ball thrown at him against the Cincinnati Reds. Now, following the beating, he spent 2 weeks unconscious in a hospital and incurred permanently damaged eyesight in his left eye. 2 weeks he was unconscious in the hospital. Zimmer managed, in the end, he managed and coached for 8 different teams, including the Montreal Expos, San Diego Padres, Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, San Francisco Giants, Colorado Rockies, Tampa Bay Rays, and Texas Rangers. You got to know at this point right now, Zimmer is probably spending some time on a field of dreams somewhere, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. The guy played for, the one article I read, 13 teams.
Yep.
But it's actually, 14 teams. The Red Sox, Rangers, Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, Rays, Senators.
Yep.
Mets, the Reds, the Padres, Expos, Rockies, and the Giants,
This guy was all over the Major League Baseball.
And, here's something that's just crazy. He's the last person to be a regular active duty uniformed baseball person who was a Brooklyn Dodger.
Yep.
That's how far back we go.
Yep.
So, lots of memories for lots of people.
Well, of course, the famous brawl, I guess, was that out there in where he actually was thrown down on the ground. Was that out at Dodger Stadium, I believe?
Yeah.
You remember that one?
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, Godspeed, Don. All righty. Well, listen, Don would want us to do the screwball stories, I think.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's time again for Frat House Mike's Screwball Stories.
You had said he was a bit of a jokester anyhow, right?
Yes. Early in his playing career. Yes.
All righty. Listen, this one comes to us thanks to our sidekick right here.
Actually, Sidekick's girlfriend.
Okay, there you go.
Brought this up to me.
AAA Philadelphia Phillies affiliate, the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, are under siege. Not from their competitors like the Rochester Red Wings or Syracuse Chiefs, But how about from a Washington, D.C. based nonprofit who launched an anti-bacon campaign against the team? Yeah, you heard that right. Anti-bacon. B-A-C-O-N, okay?
Here
we go again. Oh, no. The Iron Pigs prominently use bacon as a mascot image for the squad. In fact, you can purchase merchandise all throughout Coca-Cola Park with the bacon logo. Recently, the nonprofit invested in a billboard prominently displayed within the proximity of the Iron Pigs home venue, reading, "Keep kids safe. Ban bacon from ballparks."
Let's go have a ham sandwich.
Now, but here's what's ridiculous about this. Here's some quotes from this nonprofit.
Okay.
Quote, "Really unhealthy food is just not consistent with American values." I'm sorry, what's un-American about bacon?
We become
Another
a nation of wusses.
Quote, "1 in 3 kids of this generation will have diabetes." Okay, I'm sorry, when I think diabetes, I don't think bacon, I think Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola Park. I mean, really? There's come on now.
Well, team officials in what I would call true Dan Snyder fashion say they have no intention of changing anything. Quote, "We are the Iron Pigs, and the Iron Pigs are about fun and unique and bold creative ideas. And having bacon on our pants and our uniforms and our caps is what minor league baseball is all about," said President and General Manager Kurt Landis. We're talking about this Washington-based nonprofit. It seems to me that the group needs to adjust their sights and their fights. And it seems to me that what they need to be doing is going after that Syracuse team of them that these guys play against. Yeah. The Syracuse Chiefs?
Yeah.
Let's go after them. Get rid of that nonsense.
Or how about we get Coca-Cola off the... come on. They're gonna go off on bacon, but yet we're gonna, we've got a ballpark, Coca-Cola Park, talk about diabetes and stuff. But for everybody out there that wants to get involved in this, you can get involved in social media using the hashtag.
There you go.
Save our bacon.
That would be for the Iron Pigs. Yes.
Yes.
If you're backing the Iron Pigs, I guess as we are we doing that? We're backing them here?
I guess so. I know that you're not a big fan of bacon, but...
Well, no, I'm not, but that's my choice. I'm not going to go out and enforce that on anybody else, but...
eat responsibly.
All right. So, Frat House Sports is officially on the Save Our Bacon campaign. All right, we got it. Oh, gosh. It was recently revealed through documentation that famous iconic broadcaster Harry Callis, well, he spent 288 straight days in bars back in 1972.
Hey, Mike, I think that's Harry Carey, not Harry Callis.
Did I make a mistake? I'm sorry. Yes, I did. Whoa. Thank you very much.
Picked the wrong week to quit drinking.
Yeah. Harry. Not Harry.
I love it when we do it live.
Oh, gosh. All right, well, forget this story. No, at the time, Carey was employed by the Chicago White Sox, and part of his role was to help generate excitement and attendance at the games. In fact, his compensation package was tied to attendance at Comiskey Park. So Carey would frequently use visits to downtown bars to generate interest and use the opportunity to promote attendance. Well, his visits required that he had to maintain his receipts as evidence for the business expenses. And that's apparently where all of the information has come from. In fact, on many of the receipts, it actually is noted some of the players that he actually made purchases for. So some of the biggest players, who played the game back in 1972, Harry Carey was down there buying drinks for, and he's noting who they were.
Yep. But this comes from that era of the 3-martini lunch. And,
Yeah, well...
it was starting...
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I need a drink.
Sure.
There, but,
Interesting, though, that Carey's compensation was tied to attendance. That's a rather... that's a strange kind of a structure when you think about it. All right, how about another Cubs story? Although I don't know if you consider that one Cubs or White Sox. But one of the old-time charms of Wrigley Field is the old-fashioned...
the fact they haven't got a cup.
It's the old-fashioned outfield scoreboard, which requires people to place up the numbers by inning of the scores across the league. They still have that old-fashioned thing where you can see the cutouts of the windows, and these guys jump around and put the numbers in. Well, except that fans noticed on Tuesday during the Cubs-Mets game that many of the scores were not getting updated very quickly. Upon further investigation, it was discovered that one of the folks required to keep things timely was sleeping on the job. Right there. Yes, he was. Literally sleeping on the job right there.
Okay, you're killing me with this.
Well, listen. I think one of the stats I read was it's the Cubs. They're 27th in the league in runs scored. Mm-hmm. That would put you to sleep, I guess.
Still no championships.
There's our screwy stories. Let's go over and take a look real quick at the AL and NL standings. Blue Jays, they are for real. They are for real. 4.5 games now in front of the Orioles. Tigers are 3 games in front of the White Sox. And the A's are 5.5 games right now in front of the Angels. Over in the National League, the Braves leading the East, but as we talked about on our Touch 'em All program the other day with Jim, nobody in the East really wants to win this. The Atlanta Braves right now are only a half game, still only a half game in front of the Marlins. The Tigers right now, the Brewers right now 4 games in front of the Cardinals. And the Giants have pulled out 8.5 games now in front of the Dodgers. All right? Okay. Before we get out of baseball, let's go over and take a look at our Frat House Sports post of the week. And this one's kind of cute and rather local. It was a picture that I posted up of one of our, and this is actually true, this is the daughter/granddaughter of a couple of our own Frat House Sports friends. And they posted it up and then gave me permission to repost it because, of course, it's sports related and I wanted to do that. And it's a picture of their daughter/granddaughter who last Sunday got the game winning out of the game and ended up with a celebratory carry off the field. So congratulations goes out to Shannon. And congratulations to our Frat House Sports friends right there. That post, by the way, amazingly, probably because it's local, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of views and activity on that one. And that's just the kind of thing we do right here with our family of friends. So, what are you waiting for? Get over to our Facebook page, Frat House Sports, give us a like, and who knows? Maybe I'll post your kid up here on the show, huh? Show everybody in the world. So, get over there and like that. But we do that. We do that for our friends and for our family of friends here. All right, there's our baseball report, and many, many thanks to CLW83, as always, for sponsoring our baseball segment and chat. We've lost Mark completely now at this point. Okay, we're just going to run with it. We'll run with it.
We're going to go through. Yep.
Okay. All right. Unfortunately, we're having some technical difficulty keeping Mark in, so we're just going to run through it. Let's get over to our NASCAR report, Sidekick. We've had a couple of races here. Kind of make it a little more fun for us because they're both local. We've had a race last week in Dover. Yep. We got a race this week up in Pocono. And we're going to talk about both of those. Both of those are coming to you as part of our race report, which is sponsored by our other friends, Herb FM Sports Radio down in Baltimore. And Chris down there in Baltimore, and I promised him last night that I would do this for him. They've been doing, Herb FM Sports Radio has been doing the live broadcasts of the American Indoor Football Baltimore Mariners. And the very next live broadcast that they will be doing on Herb FM will be next Saturday. Next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday, June 14th at 7:30 p.m. when the Mariners will play for the championship against the Cape Fear Heroes. And that game will be coming from Fayetteville, North Carolina. So I'll promote it again next week, but keep it in mind. Give it a listen. It's a lot of fun. American Indoor Football. And that championship game will be on Herb FM next Saturday. And you'll want to tune into that. And you're going to want to tune in to get all of our rebroadcasts, which Chris tells me, boy, they get some ratings on our stuff down there. So thank you very much to all the folks in Baltimore and Maryland. We appreciate it. Keep listening. Absolutely. I mentioned to him that I'd love to get back down to Baltimore.
I was thinking Fayetteville.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep that in mind. All right.
We need a road trip. We haven't been on the road in a while.
It's the summertime.
We haven't been on the road in a while, man.
All right, let's get to our race report. And we had our 13th race of the season run this past Sunday, as I mentioned, down at the Monster Mile at Dover International Speedway. And holy smokes, Sidekick, you called it.
Did I? Yes, I did.
Jimmie Johnson with his second win of the season and a back-to-back.
Greg Carnac says.
You're really leading.
Sidekick, you know.
272. He led 272 of the 400 laps. It was just dominating. It was absolutely dominating. Others who came in the top 5 included Brad Keselowski came in second, Matt Kenseth third from the 21st position, Clint Boyer fourth, Denny Hamlin finally got himself a top 5. Good for him, and gets in there. So there's our top 5. Now, I guess one of the big sidebar stories early on was that of Kyle Busch, who was second, ultimately ended up in the race second in laps led with 81, but ended 42nd with the DNF after a run-in with Clint Boyer in lap 126. And it certainly appeared for a good portion of it that Busch, well, he had a shot at the three-peat because he won the truck race on Friday and then he won nationwide on Saturday.
Yeah, my other
he had a shot at it.
I put him on my other fantasy
so did
team.
I. But that didn't happen, unfortunately, as that little scrap, well, he wasn't too pleased with Mr. Boyer, apparently.
I'm sure.
The other story, not that it was a major story, but early on, at least for 2/3 of the race, Kevin Harvick again, running strong. Every time I looked up, he was either 1, 2, or 3 on this track. For, as I pointed out, it felt like a good 2/3 of the race. That is until he went down with the tire, and that ended up putting him like 2 or 3 laps behind. And he ultimately ended up finishing 17th in the race. That was still 1 lap down. But losing that tire at a critical point, in the last third, really did him in. But my goodness, again, that number 4 car running very, very strong this past weekend. All right. Now, over on the leaderboard, as we had suggested last week, if Johnson won that, bam, right to the top of the board he goes, and there he is.
Wow.
2 wins.
Like magic.
Exactly. 2 wins there. Jeff Gordon now sits in 4th. Kyle Busch with that 42nd place finish this past weekend drops off the top 5. Carl Edwards moves up into the 5th spot. All right. Now, this Sunday, as I pointed out, we're staying local yet. We're heading up to, we've been there. I love Pocono. Yeah. We're heading up to the Tricky Triangle, Pocono Raceway. Coverage begins 1 p.m., all right, on terrible NASCAR television. TNT, yes, this week for the Summer Series. But before we have to deal with that, we need to deal with, go ahead, spin your magic.
We're missing a corner there.
Exactly.
We're missing a corner there, Pocono. There's only 3 corners.
3 turns, man, 3 turns.
The Tricky Triangle. Oh, yes, we're going to Pocono. I hate to say it.
Jimmie Johnson.
Boom confetti. You might see. I'm pushing it.
Oh, my goodness.
You could see 3 in a row. You could see 3 in a row. As he has won here 3 times, and he won this race last year.
Mm-hmm. The first one.
Yes.
Okay.
So he's going to be on the roster at $28. And we'll see if we come back next week talking about boom confetti. And as you mentioned, a lot of familiar names we've been talking about. We're going to have Kevin Harvick on our roster.
Okay.
He was on the roster last week.
Yep.
Basically, the top 2 aren't changing. Kevin is $26.75. He's been exceptional all year long. Mm-hmm. Jumped out early, got the wins. He's running good every week. He's with the exception of that, the tire issue, he's been relatively consistent. Mm-hmm. So he's on there. We're going to put Denny Hamlin on there. Hopefully, this is kind of a feel-good pick.
He runs well here, though, doesn't he?
He does run. He's one of the best here.
Yeah.
This is one of his best tracks. He's actually got four victories.
Right.
Here. But, recently he's had some bad luck. He had the back problem, and he ran really good at Dover last week. So I'm putting him on the roster this week, hoping he does well. He's kind of returning to form, and he runs well, if not wins here Pocono. Also, I did that because he's 2250. The other option I was thinking about was Jeff Gordon, who's up in the 26, 27 range. So it's saving us $5. Probably about an equal driver. And then we can drop down and fill out the roster with David Reagan at 1025. And again, our lucky dog for the second week in a row, Landon Castle.
Okay. All right. There you have it. Let's take a look at our Frat House Sports fantasy standings.
Yep.
And we continue to have Sidekick spoilers. Our fantasy team right up at the top.
Yep, I got my first win of the season last
week. Right there behind you.
Yep.
Nicole right behind that one. So that's 1, 2, 3, still the same.
Sammy's up there.
Team Blood Pack, you dropped back one into fifth. I got back up onto the board at 9th. And our technical director, Brandon, moved down a little bit, down to 10th. And we'll see how things get shook up after the tricky triangle.
Yep.
All right? Okay. And there's our race report, brought to you by Herb FM. And as I mentioned before, don't forget about that Baltimore Mariners game coming up next Saturday. I'll be bringing it up again, and I'll be promoting it over on our Facebook page as well. All right? And also be checking our Facebook page to find out exactly when this show re-airs on herbfm.com. All right, before we get out of here, we'd really, really be a bad sports team if we did not mention that Game 1 of the NBA Finals begins this evening in what I think is a very, very intriguing rematch of last year's Finals between the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs. Many right now are thinking that we might just see the reverse result here. Last year, Miami won the series. It was a terrific series. It was fabulous. I believe it went 7 games last year. It was very, very intense. Many are thinking we might see the reverse situation this year. As the aging Miami team, who really hasn't played quite up to the caliber that we're used to in these playoffs, well, they might just fall a little bit short to Pop and his crew. So I can tell you right now.
Did you say flop?
Pop.
Oh, I thought you said flop.
No, that's what LeBron does.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
But listen, for those of us here at Frat House, I will tell you this. I will be checking out, absolutely watching every game of this series. And we're going to have it on here in a couple of moments. Because tonight's game, 9 o'clock on ABC. All right, so we'll be coming back with that and bringing you up to date on that.
You enjoy that. I think the rest of us are going to read us.
It is a little warm in here. All right, and the other thing I do want to mention real quick, and you're going to be bringing us updates on this next week, is we've got the FIFA World Cup
from
of
Brazil.
Soccer starting up on June 12th from Brazil, right?
Yep.
And you're going to be tracking that, bringing us updates on that, bringing us updates on our Facebook page. And then we'll have a little bit, you can bet there's going to be some soccer, some football chat next week on the show right here. In fact, that is an angle I want to kind of, I got the idea for today, and I thought, no, today's show is too full. I got an angle I'd like to bring up for next week about the World Cup, and we'll hold that one for next week. And I'm teasing it a little bit. Make sure you're going to want to tune in. If you're a soccer fan, you're going to want to see that.
As long as we don't have those stinking Vuvuzelas or whatever.
That was...
that was so freaking annoying.
Somebody ought to pull one of those out just for the fun of it. I wish I think I remember somebody giving me one. I'm going to have to see if I can go find that. All right, there's our show for
knock you out
this week. Let's make sure we get to you. Don't forget our website as well. And again, as we get more and more settled, you'll start to see that. You'll start to see that. You'll start to see that get more and more updated as we're still in boxes in some places around here, so we're still getting settled. All right, but FratHouseSports.net. You can always make sure you can find all of our shows are up there. Don't look at that. Yep. No, 142 is up there, and 143 will be up there tomorrow. So that's up to date that way. But all right, there you have it. That's the show for this week, 143. All right,
it's in the books.
They're going to read us. I'm going to go check out the NBA game. you're going to do one more thing for me. You know what it is. You got to keep us real. You got to keep us live. Keep us going. We'll see you next week. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, huh?
2 million, baby.
Yeah.
That guy would be a good clown.
Okay, there's 4. I'm sorry, Brandon. Take that back. There is 4. Because then I go in and I will highlight in here on this one. I'm going to highlight what the new values are of the worst teams and
The Ballmer-fied valuation?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, then we'll go over to Dan Marino. And there are only 3 slides for this one. Concussion lawsuit. Dan playing. Boom. And then...
That looks like it hurts.
Dan playing.
No, that's Hall of Fame.
I know. I'm saying it.
It's a joke.
Yeah, I know. That's all right. Then we'll go over to the recent illustration of...
Don't make me come up there.
Don't make me come up there.
We'll go over to those